Brown 45. Brown 45. Hot, 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 hot.
So, Cooper, how are you feeling?
We are officially in the generic fantasy league football playoffs. Brian, we had an astounding week 14 to end the season. I mean, we're going to get into all the details. Heartbreak, travesty, miracles, quite a few on Monday night. Where on earth do you want to start us off this evening?
Where do you think I want to start us off this evening? After perhaps one of the most exciting regular season finishes in GFL history, baby?
My goodness, you couldn't have written the script any better.
You couldn't have scripted it any better. There's headlines all over the place. And I've got to start at the biggest one, at least where one of us is concerned. Cooper, are you familiar with NSYNC?
I know of them.
Especially around Christmas time. They have a nice Christmas song out. It's one of my favorites.
Agreed.
My headline. It's Teton Timberlake. The Teton Timberlakes. Why, you might ask?
Please.
Those of you that are familiar with NSYNC might know one of their most hit songs by the name of Bye Bye Bye. Where everybody can hear it in their heads. That's because the Teton Tinglers, hang on, get this shit. The Teton Tinglers trounced Tyreek's team to take the 2 seed. They do it. Out of nowhere, on the back of 6 straight wins, they get out there. And they beat the team that would have taken the 2 seed, and they snatch it from them. 2 straight wins over the Willies. 2 straight in 4 weeks, I believe. Perhaps 5.
Look, going from a team that had at one point less than a 20% chance of making the playoffs to winning the West Division is not a spot I thought myself in. And yet here we are. And let me tell you, the boys are ready. They're hungry. I'm going to jump around a little bit. I want to get back to some of the matchups you mentioned just now in your headline.
Yeah, don't worry.
I'm going to take us back to the beginning of the season. I really leaned on alliteration quite a bit more in my headlines at that time. They've taken some uncanny left and right turns since then. We're taking it back in the history books. Debo digs Goober's grave, drops Saquon in squad, seed to 6th.
Woo! He's back.
Chris's team put up a meager 112, but MIC came out here and dropped 160 off a 34 from Debo, 27 from DJ Moore, and 23 from Saquon. I mean, you got to think the commissioner's finding his stride just a tad late, but he's got to feel confident in his chances of having a first-round exit in the losers bracket this week.
The next headline. Rivalry week. Week spelled W-E-A-K. Week. And I'm talking about LeBron's third leg and the Silly Willies. I'm talking about them. 2 teams, highly thought of, highly respected, limping into the playoffs. Absolutely limping. For LeBron's third leg, 107, and then 99 from LeBron's third leg, losing to the Chief, who's been on a hot streak, by the way. John, you better watch out for that one.
You better
and then the Silly Willies, 103, and then 120. This is 2 favorites coming in, and these guys don't look like they don't have their teams ready.
Brian, with my next headline, Don McLean prediction proved wrong. We're all familiar with Don McLean, the American singer-songwriter who famously wrote in his 1971 classic American Pie, drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry.
Levee was dry.
I'll tell you, The Levis I saw on the field Monday night was anything but dry, with a historic comeback over the Dolphins, scoring 15 points in 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
Man.
Fun fact, that's such a long song, you could have 3 of those game-winning drives before you finished it.
That is an outstanding headline.
Dolphins absolutely washed away. The most direct implications of that for the GFL being Tyreek only getting 10 out for about half the game with an injury, and Tua only scoring 9 points, putting you in the playoffs.
Let's go. Man, I was sweating that one. I needed 20 and a half points from Tua, and he didn't get it. He didn't even get halfway. I think where to go here. Do I flip to the back page? Do I keep it in the middle? What do I do? Because Cooper, this is a jam-packed newspaper.
It is, certainly.
This is one of the fattest issues we've ever had. And I'm going to take it somewhere close to home before I take it somewhere, maybe a little bit closer to someone else's home. You'll see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
The headline, Little Brother. What team do you think I might be talking about here? Not to toot my own horn here, but the team I'm talking about is Kirkland's Signature. Little Brother. Get this. Just as I have never beaten LeBron's third leg, Kirkland's Signature has never beaten me.
Never.
Dating back to last year.
Oh my God! Are you serious? He still can't guard me. He's a bum. He's been a bum. He's been a bum since '86. That's not.
Week 3, dub. Week 17, not at all, not controversial at all. Dub. Week 4 this week, a resounding dub, 70-point dub. And this week,
another dub.
A mental block. I don't know what the manager has to do to overcome me. He's trying to throw me off in the group chat. Didn't work. I don't know. We'll have to see. Hopefully, I'll meet him in the championship game, and I'll beat him again.
Brian, before you look too far in the future, I want to look back just a few days ago. Silver medalist snubbed sitting on sidelines.
Oh!
Do you know that most points scored in any week this season by a tight end?
By a tight end? No, I don't know what it is.
Travis Kelce, week 7, 36 points.
Is that so?
Do you know the second most points scored by a tight end this year?
Oh, no, I know exactly what it is.
Evan Ingram sitting on your bench, putting up 32, getting 2 touchdowns against the Browns, and Kincaid with his weakest performance since week 5. Only 7 points off 5 catches, 21 yards.
It's tough. It's really tough to see.
It's a miracle you still got the dub. Otherwise, Evan Ingram would haunt you for the rest of your life. Dreams and awake.
He absolutely would have. That decision to put him on the bench, I think, suggested by you last week. Let's look at the episode last week. Was a poor one.
Mm-hmm. You got to sit Evan Ingram this week.
Huh? After his performance?
After his performance, he plays the Browns, who historically clog the middle of the field. I watched the end of that Jacksonville game, and whatever the third string quarterback, whatever his name is, Beathard, likes the drop-off passes to Etienne and the long throws to Calvin. I think Kincaid is going to get it done against Kansas City. That is a fierce rivalry matchup. I think you got to start Kincaid.
Really? At the very least.
Not my greatest take.
Uh-huh. Now, I know I've given 3, but like I said, this is a big issue. So I have a 4th headline. A certain team that we've been avoiding. A certain black sheep this week.
Uh-huh.
The headline. The Ohio State Buckeyes. Interesting. Why might I choose that team for this headline?
Why is that, Brian?
Well, because the Florida man entrusted his playoff hopes, a team we all know isn't in the college football playoffs, to 2 guys from the Ohio State University, C.J. Stroud and, would you believe, Noah Brown. His 2 lowest point getters were both Buckeyes.
Wow.
How do you like that? That's what happens when you trust a Buckeye to get you a win. It doesn't work out.
The only Buckeyes I like are the little peanut butter balls covered in chocolate that you ate at Christmas time.
Now, those are great.
With the regular season over, I want to take a minute and call out some season superlatives. Similar to your high school yearbook, you're flipping through, you see Clown, you see most likely to whatever. We've assigned season superlatives for all members in the league. Brian, why don't you kick us off with someone from the West Division?
Boy, I'd love to. Who better to kick us off with than Kirkland Signature? Kirkland Signature. His superlative. He's the luckiest team this year. The luckiest team. You're going to say, Brian, Mr. Ball, he's 9-5. How could you possibly say that about a team? First of all, he is by far the lowest points gained in the playoff. The man is averaging 116 points on the year. Averaging 116. 2 of his highest scoring opponents were me. Week 4 in the last week, or week 3, at 142 and 131. The other one was LeBron's third leg at 132. He has seen no other higher scores than that. That's it. Averaging 116, so he is the luckiest player.
I love that take.
Thank you.
I'm going to work up the rankings of the East Division for my superlatives. Meaning we're starting at the bottom. The Swifties.
Oh, dear.
Most likely to travel the world, but also most likely to become an alcoholic.
2? Good Lord.
Not quite the most beer pours on the season. That lies with In Gabe We Trust with 3 on the year. But the Swifties having 2 late in the season, week 9, and then a week 13 beer pour that never happened. I think if these beers keep piling up the way they are, it's going to be a...
With my second team, of course. And that is, of course, In Gabe We Trust, the team you just mentioned, formerly LA Ligma FC. His superlative is most cursed team. Cursed, I say. Why do I say that? Jonathan Taylor, from the get-go, was just dud. Next up, Justin Jefferson, right when he needs him, shits the bed. Devon A-Chain, right as he picks him up, gets hurt again, can't use him anymore. Miles Sanders, drafted him high. He was going in like the 4th round. Complete dud. He was on the waivers by like week 6. Yep. And then, of course, Gabe Davis. He caught the bug this year. He was cursed by Gabe. Just in Greek mythology, the song sirens sing to the sailors on the ships. I didn't even mean to do that alliteration.
Wow.
He was allured by Gabe's swan song of 20. Oh, I scored 20 points a week. Just play me.
Brian, you bring up such a great point. I would like to suggest an alternative superlative for Mr. Bergeron. Most likely to get back with his ex. In Gabe Davis, week on, week off, on the bench, on the field, playing, not playing, 2 a.m., you up dreams.
You up?
It's a desperate sight for a team that is in very real danger of doing a beer mile in just a few weeks.
He is.
To jump over to a team that I originally predicted might be doing something similar to a beer mile, I want to talk about the Chiefs.
Ooh, the Chief.
A little bit of a niche one here. Biggest Cowboys fan.
Huh?
Starting Dak all the way back since week 9. Since then, he has gone 4-2. Dak is QB3 on the year, and I attribute a big part of this team's relevance to that QB down in Dallas.
No, he's hot, but don't you dare everybody call somebody a bigger Cowboys fan than me. I take offense to that, young man.
I do believe you sat the Dallas defense when your playoff chances were on the line.
And they're sitting this week too, but it doesn't matter. I love Micah Parsons. The Chargers just suck. I have to play the Raiders. Next up, it is one and only our commissioner, who's on a boat right now, sailing the 7 seas, and has been out there for about 10 days.
With our league's money.
Yeah, with our league's money that he apparently has paid, but the treasurer says he hasn't paid. I don't think it's
sketchy.
His superlative: late bloomer. Past 2 weeks, 133, 160. Huh? What? Here's a stat for you. Since he sent out that text that said, I think I might have the best and deepest team in the league, since that week, and ending at his little 133 game, that little middle portion of the season, he's averaging 102 points a game.
What the hell?
102 points a game.
Oh
That's not very many.
That's not very many points. I see you furrowing your brow. He doesn't have very many wins either.
Jumping over to another team in a similar echelon of record and skill on the year, Waddle House.
Interesting.
This far and above the easiest superlative, biggest flirt. Many times throughout the season, they showed signs of promise, only to have Jamar Chase drop a whopping 5 points.
Oh my goodness.
Not to mention his namesake, Jalen Waddle, who went in the second round, is currently sitting at the wide receiver 26 on the year. That's a team that just hasn't been able to put it together, despite what on paper looks like a fairly solid roster.
It's not. It's we've certainly been flirted with by the Waddle House.
DeAndre Swift not doing it.
Why not? Next up, the Bikini Bottom Goobers. Interesting team. I can think of a few different superlatives for him. Highest floor, most consistent team, but I'm gonna land on hardest team to beat.
Oh,
hardest team to beat. Now he's gonna say again. He's 8-6. He's the 6th seed. What are you talking about? Week 3, 99 points. Sorry. Week 1, 95 points. Week 11, 100 points. Take those, throw them out. First of all, that's not even low in the scheme of things. It's not even that low. Both of the in Game We Trust and the Swifties scored lower than that this week. But if you throw those out, he averages 131 points a game. And he's got 3 more losses on that schedule. The dude puts up points and consistently.
Because you brought up who, in my eyes, is Mr. Consistency, being the manager of LeBron's third leg.
It seems so.
Never scoring below 99 points, which he's done twice this season. Christian McCaffrey holding it down, not to mention the consistency year over year in that star player. Now, I will say we've seen a slight chink in the armor. This is the first time in GFL history that manager has had back-to-back losses in his career.
Are you serious?
Last year, he exited after a first-round bye. The same may be happening this year if he doesn't get in the locker room and start amping those players up.
Talked about him earlier. Next team is the Silly Willies. Hang a banner. If you're in the Silly Willies locker room, hang a banner. It's the October champs. If the season would have ended in October, they would have been the champions. Through week 8, 7-1. Since 1-5.
Ooh.
Silly Willie was really hoping that the NFL football season was really only 8 weeks long.
Brian, this next one pains me a little bit to say.
Oh, you're gonna slander me.
No. I'm talking about Florida man.
Oh, this doesn't pain me at all. Go ahead.
Most likely to trip at graduation.
Oh, that's so good.
Left out of the playoffs after a Week 14 loss to the Waddle House, who he went 0-2 against this season.
He did.
Another season running right there, right on the edge of glory and not able to get it done. You gave us the great insight just a moment ago, largely due to the Ohio State. But man, I feel for the guy. I really do.
You gotta feel for him. I called him earlier. He was on the Stairmaster. I think he was crying. He didn't want to say it though. It's got to be crushing for the Florida man. But that does bring me to one more team, and it's the Teton Tinglers. This is an easy one for me, and I don't even have to be creative. Comeback team of the year, without a doubt in my mind. Comeback team of the year, from 3-5 to 9-5. That it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen often. So you better capitalize.
It has been a phenomenal season for the Tinglers. I appreciate the kind words, Brian.
Of course.
Now, Brian, I was so excited to give you what was going to be your superlative of valedictorian. But I don't know if you've looked. You missed out on most points for by 0.12 behind the Silly Willies.
A minute?
On the season.
What?
Oh, it's 20.12.
Oh, okay.
Is this part of the bit?
I wish it was, but no. I read the numbers wrong. I thought you were this close. You were about that close.
It's salutatory and it's close.
Yeah, that's what that's called.
There you go.
Without such an honor to your name, you instead get the Best Dressed Award. Always bringing your Sunday best, maybe not to the field, but certainly to this show, Ball and Chain.
I do.
loudest was another option. It was going to be most engaged. I think you really are a glue of this franchise and of this league. But hey, best dressed. I mean, look at you. You're a fine dining server mixed with Maverick. It's something to behold.
I'll take it. Kindness on this show. Not something that we see often.
Well, Brian, we've talked enough about what's happened in the past throughout the regular season. Where do you want to go now?
Of course, I want to go to this week. And what's going on this week? Cooper, there are playoff games on this week. Playoff games on. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with my matchup. I want your thoughts on that.
Before we get there,
okay,
we're going to predict a lot of these matchups for the first round of playoffs, both the actual playoffs and the losers bracket. If you all recall, over the past 3 rivalry weeks, both Ball and I have predicted all 18 matchups. I went back, looked at the footage, saw what our records were over that time. Brian, would you like to venture a guess as to what you were in those 18 matchups for your predictions?
I think I probably hit 7 out of 18. I know I got mine against LeBron's third leg right, though.
That's the most impressive prediction you've had all night. 7 correct, 11 wrong over those 3 weeks. The big dip coming from week 13 where you went 1-5. The only matchup you called correctly was the lock of Florida Man beaten in Gabe We Trust.
Yeah, that's a lock. Listen, I'm America's honesty broker. That's what I'm bringing.
Brian, myself, Shane.
Yeah, what'd you get?
12-6 over that time period. Going 5-1 on week 13. Calling everything except for MIC upsetting the Waddle House.
Wow. Look at you go. All right. This guy's on a hot streak everywhere.
So that in mind, let's get into the matchups for this week. Starting off with the 4 versus the 5 seed, the Willies versus Brian's football team. We got to address the elephant in the room, which you mentioned. The Willies are 1-5 in their last 6.
They are. But they're
Tyreek's got most of the loss to the Titans with an ankle injury. Definitely got to keep an eye on injury designation there. But speaking of injury designation, Keenan Allen out.
Yeah, no, he's done.
For Thursday night.
I'm not entirely sure he's hurt. I think he just doesn't want to play with whoever the hell our quarterback is.
Gibbs needs to have a huge game against Denver. And you've got Monty on the other side playing against him.
That's a hell of a matchup.
Jerome Ford in the flex does not instill a lot of confidence in me, nor does picking up OBJ off the waivers.
He's Mr. Consistent.
It's going to be neck and neck, but in order to avoid the choke artist designation that is hanging over his head, I am giving this one to the Willies a bit reluctantly.
Wow. All right. I mean, the only thing you didn't say was Lamar against Jacksonville. You might have, but I was too focused on my part. I think I'm worried about that. And I think his Packers love may be the downfall. Drop that defense, buddy. As an honest competitor, drop that D. Pick up somebody else. That being said, final score. Brian football team 120. Silly Willies 128.
No, you're rooting against yourself.
Keenan's out. He's the heart and soul of our team. Liable to go for 40 on any given day. Listen, I think it might be time to let someone else have a championship here. Let someone? No. I won't ever let somebody, but I think it may be that time anyway. Next up, we got the Goobers versus Kirkland Signature. Interesting matchup. And if you ask me, America's honesty broker, what the score's going to be, I'll get to that in a second. You got Stephon Diggs, not Stephon Diggs. Matt Stafford and Puka versus Washington. That's where the points are going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
Kirkland, if Geno plays, he's going to torch Philly. Philly D is not what it is. If you remember at the beginning of the season, I traded the Philly D to the MIC Child Killers straight up for the Cowboys D. Because he said, it's a wash. It doesn't even matter. That being said, 131 Goobers, 116 Kirkland.
If I can add just a couple points there.
You may.
I think these two teams are fairly even on talent. I think this game's going to come down to something I talk about on the show a lot, and that's momentum. In breaking news, neither of them have it.
They do not.
Both coming up off a loss. I do think Kirkland dropping Tua was a rash decision. He had a down game, but to play Geno instead is questionable. I think the only players who have momentum on either of those squads are Tony Pollard and Derrick Henry, the latter of whom has 6 touchdowns over the last 3 games. Ultimately, I think whichever of those 2 players scores higher is going to be the team that wins. That being said, if I have to lean one way or another, Chris is going to die by his own sword of Tony Pollard. I'm giving this one to Kirkland.
You can't possibly pick Kirkland in this one. You can't possibly. Absolutely not. We're going to put 2 cores on this game. Did I lose last week? Did I say that the in-game we trust in the Swifties would be the second highest scoring matchup?
I do believe
I
you
did say that.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to get those cores back. I got the Goobers in this one.
I look forward to it.
Looking at a little bit of a darker turn here. The losers bracket.
Oh,
Cue the lightning. Yeah, we look at the Waddle House and the MIC Child Killers. Really interesting matchup, but it gets less interesting the more that you look at it. Waddle House signature move is dropping about 108 points a week. If you can score more than 108 points, you can beat the Waddle House. That's going to be the key here for the MIC Child Killers. And he's too hot right now. He's hot. Waddle House is cold. MIC 130 to 105.
Low scoring on the part of Waddle House. Brian, I'm going to be honest. I think Jimmy's used up all his juice.
Oh, is that so?
I think he peaked a little early, and now we're getting to playoffs, and he's not going to have it. For JD, no Justin Herbert is going to be tough. That being said, Zay Flowers is hot, and Mixon has been manhandling defenses. I've got this as a high-scoring brawl with the Waddle House taking the dub over the Commissioner, about 141 to 121.
How can you possibly take the over in this game? This has under written all over it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Herbert's gonna be tough. Next up, our final reverse elimination game. It's the Chief and Florida Man. Interesting teams. I just want to let you know, incorrect opponent, but when we predicted the losers bracket, you had the Florida Man here, and you had the Florida Man losing. Is that the case?
I had this.
You had them lose. You didn't have the Chief. You had Gabe, but you still had the Florida Man losing in this round. Is that still the case?
Well, I wasn't considering the fact he would be playing the Chief, who is still my overall predictor to lose the losers bracket.
True. You sticking with that?
But I gotta say, I think John, much like CJ Stroud with his possible concussion, will look to forget everything that just happened last weekend in order to ensure safety from a beer mile. On the other hand, Caden seems to have mentally checked out. He played Pacheco last week, which is concerning. Meanwhile, John is on a smear campaign for the league as a whole and has rocket launch level spike. I've got Florida Man taking it by 30, 160 to 130.
You think an angry Florida Man is going to come in there?
I think an angry Florida Man's coming out.
The Florida Man is, inside information, he's getting ready for a launch tomorrow. Who knows where that launch is going? It could be
that team's launching off on Sunday.
Oh my goodness! I could be looking at a rocket outside my window this weekend. Yeah, he's got all of his running backs are questionable. The Chief, that is, all of them had Qs. And then again, Cup is going to torch Washington. So, as much as I hate to do it, the Chief will fall to the Florida Man, 128 to 131.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go, Brian, I'm told you have a very thrilling bonus segment for us today.
Of course, I got a bonus segment. Get
Hooray!
excited. Cooper. Ooh, we did a lot of superlatives. We did a lot of regular season sort of outcomes here. We know this year, but what I want you to do is I want you to give us next year's way too early predictions. Way too early. You know the managers. And I'm going to give you a series of superlatives and outcomes, and you're going to tell me what they are.
I'm going to be completely frank with you. I don't know if we're going to have the same 12 managers going into next season.
Is that so? We're going to have to assume so, but who may not be participating?
I think the board's going to have some performance-related conversations, engagement-related conversations.
Oh, my goodness.
Take it away.
Cooper, starting off nice and easy. Who are the playoff teams for next year? Who's getting in? Like I said, way too early predictions.
In no particular order.
No particular order.
I'm going to take In Gabe We Trust, MIC Child Killers, Waddle House,
What?
Piton Tinglers,
All right.
Brian Football Team.
Thank you.
We have one more. I lost
You
count.
do.
Silly Willies.
Oh, Silly Willies. Wow. Leaving out Kirkland's signature and the Florida man again?
And LeBron's third leg.
That's the most shocking one. Wow.
Someone's taking Christian McCaffrey before Brett can, and he's not going to know what to do with himself.
This is the only.
He's too busy ghost managing women's league teams to come back in the GFL and know what he's doing next year.
Keep tuned on that one. He's like Belichick without Tom Brady. It just I don't know how to cope. Oh, careful there.
Oh, geez.
Next up, who's winning? Who's the winner?
Don't.
Are you seeing into the
Got to be
future?
one of those 6 teams I just mentioned, I suppose.
It should be. You better not pick somebody else.
I'm going to give it to In Gabe We Trust.
You're shitting me. Get out of here, dude. Oh my.
I think they're going to follow a similar arc to the Tinglers, going from the bottom of the barrel to making the playoffs to maybe a Cinderella story.
That would be insane. All right. Well, who's the loser?
Last place,
Last place.
Kirkland signature.
Oh boy. I mean, horrible for the manager if that ends up happening. Next up, the comeback team. Who's going to be the surprise comeback team next year?
I think Caden's got it in him. He's had 2 seasons with some real high notes and maybe just a little bit more of a gloomy shadow over them. But I think there's enough there to learn, put it together in full in the latter half of next year.
I think you're right. Well, on that note, who's going to have the biggest collapse?
It's Silly Willies.
The Steelers are going to collapse?
It's in their nature.
No
It's their
way.
DNA.
I can't wait to pull this up next year. Ridiculous. All right. Knowing all that about the teams, who will be the coach of the year? Who will coach their team the best?
Based on your fake coaching metric or based on actual numbers?
Based on, that's one and the same thing. Thank you very much.
I think the MIC Child Killers
Get that.
are going to be a
Absolutely not.
really well-coached team. The manager is not going to have to worry about finding a job next year, hopefully, assuming he can keep a new job for more than a year.
That'd be great. We're going to shift maybe more to the players here. Who will be the best player next year?
Best player?
Yeah, who people drafting?
I think it might be CeeDee Lamb.
Lamb with the first. Wow. With the year that CMC's having?
I do. If the Cowboys make a decent playoff run, CD continues to get those TDs that he has been.
Who's the biggest bust? Who's going to go high, but in your opinion, kind of sucks?
Austin Eckler is going to be that bust. He's getting up there in years. You tend to see a pretty sharp and sudden drop-off in running back performance after about 31. I think some of our lesser experienced managers are going to take him pretty high. I think he might still be a first-round pick, and I just don't think he's going to be worth that next year.
And our last question, what week will be our best episode?
Of next season?
Yeah, what week do you think is going to hit?
I mean, based off the week 14 we just had, I don't know how you top that.
The answer we're looking for is the next one. The next episode.
Wow.
On the spot. Man, it's playoff time, baby. It's Christmas time. Things are heating up and cooling down at the same time. Cooper, your final thoughts.
So excited. I feel fairly confident I'm going to be in a similarly good mood next week. This time, to be determined if you will or not. Regardless, Ball and Chain will be here to break it all down for you, the first round of the GFL playoffs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening in, as per usual, and we will see you next time. Well, first off, I think the city of Dallas is going to implode